Hi everyone, welcome back to the Hot Girls and Hockey podcast. My name is Sarah. If you're new here, this is the show where we talk about all things hockey, the what to knows, the who to knows, and everything in between. And today's episode, sorry that I believe it'll be coming out late, but it is all about Marc-André Fleury. To preface before I go into this episode, Marc-André, he is from Quebec, Canada, which I hope I'm pronouncing Quebec right. I never know if it's Quebec or Quebec. I am an American who is just trying their best, which means that a lot of these names and stuff are going to be French. And I took 2 years of French in high school. Really only know how to say I don't know. Je ne sais pas. So bear with me, please. And if you know pronunciations, these ones correctly or whatever, if you need to correct me on anything, please do. That way I know more and you've educated someone. So wanted to get that all out of the way. But before we get into the episode, I do just want to give my piece on how the Sharks have been doing this season. Which is not good. And I'm not proud to admit, but I mentioned how I went to the game against Pittsburgh. And I was getting so fucking frustrated. I went by myself, by the way. But I was getting so fucking frustrated that and this is the first time I've ever done it, I left in the middle of the third period. And I was like, I have to drive 3 hours home. We're going to lose. I'm just going to leave. And it's not something I'm proud of, but it's just, I knew that it would do better for me to not see them lose another game in person. I don't know what the hell happened between preseason and now. I don't know what the hell happened between last season and now. But we can only go up, hopefully. I mean, we haven't gone up recently, but I just know that another win or a win, it has to be on the horizon. I need to keep that thought in my little head so I don't completely give up on my team. I would never give up on my team, but metaphorically. But with all that said, everyone else is doing fucking great. Fuck Vegas. If you know, you know. Let's just dive into this player profile on our favorite goalie, this is the first player profile on a goalie, so slay, love that. I do not have the Sharks Cup or Black Cherry Hard Seltzer because it is 9 a.m. And I feel that having a seltzer at 9 a.m. when you're not at an airport or on vacation kind of dwells into walking into a room with a group of everyone you know with a letter in their hand territory. So we're not drinking that early in the morning. What we are drinking is it's a craft soda. It's lavender cherry, so it is cherry flavored. So if you also want to grab a little fun drink, if you're watching this in the morning, you want to watch it with your breakfast and your matcha or coffee, do that too. And let's just get into the episode. Cheers. Okay, so our man of the hour, Marc-André Fleury, was born on November 28th, 1984, and remember my preface before the episode, Sorel Tracy in Quebec, Canada. So Canadian boy, Quebec boy. And if you know anything about that region of Canada, you would know that the main language or the dominant language is French over there. So French was his first language. He knows French and English, but French was the language that he grew up speaking. And he, in his entire playing career, was a goalie or a goaltender. like I said, slay the first goalie profile on this channel. And growing up, especially because he grew up in Quebec, his favorite team was the Montreal Canadiens growing up, and he would play a lot of like street hockey and obviously ice hockey when he was little. I literally couldn't find anywhere, and I scoured because I like, other than buying a book about him, which I mean, I could do that, but I didn't want to. But I couldn't find exactly what age he started, skating or playing hockey, which I usually like to include like when they started their quote unquote career or like future career, but I couldn't find anything on that. All I know is that he grew up playing street hockey and also eventually obviously would fucking goaltend on the ice too. But what I do know is that when he was about 15 or 16 years old, he left home. So he left Quebec to go move in with his billet family, which, if you don't know, and I hope I'm saying billet right, I'm pretty sure I am. A billet family is pretty much a family that takes in hockey players from different areas that are like far from home, and takes in these players. Think like American families or just families taking in like a foreign exchange student. But in this case, they're just taking them in because they've been scouted or drafted or whatever to a league that is far away from where their families are. So there's a family that takes in hockey players, pretty much just like, takes them to practice, takes them to their games, watches after them, feeds them, clothes them, whatever. Because they're so far away from their home. And it's mostly for players that are under the age of 18, so minors. And, sometimes, these players will stay with other families other than theirs when they get drafted to an NHL team. But it's usually the home of someone who is a former player of the team that they're drafted to or a current player. Case in point, Michael Misa, who is obviously been drafted to San Jose Sharks. He is not from San Jose, obviously. His family doesn't live in San Jose. So he, at the moment, is living with Tyler Toffoli and his wife, Kat, or also how Macklin Celebrini, when he moved from Canada to San Jose, and I think he is still staying with them, moved in with Joe Thornton and his family. Joe Thornton is obviously one of the best Sharks players to ever fucking live. So it's kind of like that, but like when kids are minors. Got it? Get it? Good. And he did all this because he was leaving to go play junior ice hockey for the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles. I love that name. I love the name Screaming Eagles. That is so fucking funny. And this was in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia in Canada. So he's still in Canada, but it's about a 13-hour drive from Sorel, Tracy to Cape Breton. So that's probably the reason why they made the decision to have him stay with the billet family instead of just having his family move so far away. And like I mentioned before, his first language was French. So when he moved from his hometown to Cape Breton, he didn't speak very much English, but he would learn, obviously, from living in this new climate where majority of the people around him spoke English, and obviously majority of his coaching staff spoke English, so he would learn pretty much just from like playing hockey and from being in this new culture, from going from a majority French-speaking province, I think that's what they're called in Canada, to a majority English-speaking province. And then like right off the bat, really, which is just par for the course for players that have made lasting impressions and are really, really good, he was just like showing off a very, very good goaltending skills. He was very flexible. If you know goalies, you know them bitches fucking doing the splits. I feel that they would do a very good bar routine if they got their equipment off and then were thrown into like a gymnast beam. But he was showing really good skills with his flexibility, his blocking, his saving, etc., all that good stuff that comes with being a goalie. And he would actually go on to play with the Canadian junior team at the World's Juniors in 2003, and they won silver. So slay, we love. We love an early prospect that is also showing us why exactly he's an early prospect. And now it is time for the 2003 NHL entry draft, where he was leading up to projected to be the number 1 pick, and sure enough, in 2003 NHL entry draft, he was selected first overall by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he is only the 3rd goalie to be chosen first overall in an NHL entry draft. Love it. I watched like the video of his draft when he got like called up and stuff, and I'll say this, has the most kind smile and kind eyes that I've ever seen like a man have. He just gives off that vibe of like very approachable, very cute, very just a good overall all around guy. And you know, that I feel like that gets taken into consideration too when they're picking an overall first pick. Obviously their skills are the main factor, but you also want your first overall to be a very likable person. You know, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Marc-André Fleury, Macklin Celebrini, Connor Bedard, Connor McDavid too. So like you want them to be obviously a great player, but a good person too, and he just radiates good energy. And thus this would begin his career with the Pittsburgh Penguins starting in the 2003 and 2004 season. His debut game was on October 10th, 2003 against the LA Kings, and he had a very, very good first game with 46 saves. You know, even though Pittsburgh lost the game, it was a very, very good first introduction to his NHL career and exactly what we could see from him as a goalie. And then not too far after that, on October 30th, was when he got his very first shutout in a game against Chicago, where Pittsburgh won 1-0. So if you don't know what a shutout is, and I've said this in other episodes too, just to refresh you on the hockey jargon or whatever, a shutout is pretty much when a team, like goalie, does not let any shots in at all. He has hella saves, and so then the game usually ends in like 5-0, 1-0, 2-0, whatever. In this case it was 1-0 because he didn't let in any shots from Chicago. So slay, love that. And all this earned him the honorable achievement of getting Rookie of the Month in October of 2003. And so now I want to just go over something. So like with a lot of draft picks, either first overall, second, whatever, they, you know, will sometimes sign onto their team with a standard 3-year entry-level contract. Sometimes they'll go and they'll play in the OHL, AHL, or go back and play on their hockey teams, their colleges, instead of going just straight into the NHL. And in this case, Marc-André, he had signed a 3-year entry-level contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but that did not automatically mean that he would be playing all the time with the Penguins in these NHL games. Case in point, he ended up getting pulled, actually, because around this time the Penguins were not doing very well financially, and they like just kind of couldn't, they like needed to like look and see where they could, you know, save some money. And I mean, obviously with any of their veteran players, they're not gonna pull them and send them down to the fucking AHL, or pull them and have them go to a different team. They're going to look at who they just acquired, and really, you know, has been playing good, but still hasn't, you know, made his mark. So Marc-André was then pulled and sent to play back where he came from, which was, if you don't remember, the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles, and he only played there for a little bit before then eventually getting moved to the Pittsburgh Penguins AHL team, which is kind of like their minor teams, it's like their development teams pretty much, which is called the Wilkes-Barre / Scranton Penguins. that's a really long name, so they shorten it to the WS Penguins, which is just, they're a lower level team, but, still really good players there, but they just they get pulled to go play on the Penguins if needed and anything like that. So at this point right now, he's played games in October with the Penguins, his debut season, but now he's being pulled to WS, so now he's playing on the WS Penguins team. He would play with this team for the 2004-2005 season. He was still keeping a very good save percentage, and that team's season, the WS Penguins, ended in a 26-19-4 record. So not bad at all, really good. So he wasn't playing on the Penguins, but he was still showing that he is good goalie and showing why exactly he earned his number one overall pick status. And then we also have to remember at this time that the 04 and 05 season was a lockout season for the NHL, but not the AHL. So NHL wasn't playing anything. I feel like I mentioned a lockout season in every goddamn player profile or team deep dive, but it's just because they haven't had a lot, but they've had enough to where I mention them, and it happens in all these timelines. So he was slaying in the AHL, and NHL was not doing anything because they were negotiating new contracts. And so once all that got settled and stuff, then started the 2005 and 2006 season, and he started it still playing for WS, but then he was pulled up to play for the Penguins because their main goalie was injured. So then they were like, well, we still have Marc-André, and look at his stats for, last season when obviously we weren't playing, but he was, and he's doing pretty good. Let's just pull him up and have him play. So they did. And then from October to about late November of 2005, he would be playing for WS, besides that time that he was pulled for the Penguins, before then being put again in Pittsburgh to play for the Pittsburgh Penguins for the rest of that season. And then it was this time when he was in the off season before the 2006-2007 when Pittsburgh offered a 2-year contract extension to him. And boy, what a season the 2006-2007 season was. I say this a lot, but it slayed. He had 5 shutouts and became one of two Pittsburgh goalies to have 40 wins in a single season. So he's fucking killing it. I bet Penguins were like, why did we send him back to WS? Why did we do that? I know that we were struggling for money, but could we have stopped something else? And it was also the season that saw him go to the playoffs for the very first time, to the 2007 Stanley Cup playoffs. Penguins didn't win. I think they got knocked out in the first or the second round, but it's still really good. And also remember at this time now that we have Marc-André and we have Sidney Crosby on the team. So 2 players that will become some of the best in their respective positions. So let's just keep that in mind. And so for as good as the 2006-2007 season was for Marc-André, the next one was kind of a lot, to say the least. So this was the 2007-2008 season. And a couple of things happened. I'm not going to go too in depth on the whole season, but I will give off these bullet points. 1, he had an ankle injury that took him out for a few games at the beginning of the season. 2, he changed the color of his goalie equipment. It used to be this really, really bright yellow, which if you don't know the colors of the Pittsburgh Penguins, their team's colors are yellow, black, white, I think a little bit of gray too. And he changed that from yellow to whites. And I read that this was just to I don't know, have them blend in with the ice more. I don't fucking know, but he made changes to that. And then the team did make it to the 2008 playoffs and eventually made it to the finals. So this is Marc-André's very first brush with the Stanley Cup finals, where during game 6 he was trying to cover this unseen puck in his net, and he tried covering it by sitting on it, but then he ended up accidentally launching it into his own net. And that essentially helped Detroit win the cup that year. And so he was getting a lot of shit about that. And so ahead of the next season, the 2008 to 2009, he made this like statement. He's like, I'm not gonna fucking dwell on it. I don't think that that's the winning goal, and I don't think that's what won Detroit, but like, I'm not gonna live in the past, and you guys shouldn't either. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. That's not exactly what he said, but it's like the vibe of what he said. So he's not dwelling on it. I'm sure like he at the moment was like kicking himself for it, but you move on, you move past, and you move forward. And that's exactly what he did. And obviously Pittsburgh wasn't holding a grudge against him for this either, because in the off season right before the 08 and 09, he ended up signing a 7-year contract with the Penguins, and this included a no movement and a no trade clause that he could trigger starting in 2010. Please keep this in your mind, because I will be coming back to it. And this would essentially keep him with the Penguins until at least 2015 at this point. So now we are in the 2008 to 2009 season, and the Penguins did amazing, obviously, and they made it to the playoffs, to the 2009 Stanley Cup playoffs, to be exact. And finally, Marc-André, and also Sidney Crosby, but we're not talking about him in this episode. We already has an episode about him. But Marc-André and the Pittsburgh Penguins won the 2009 Stanley Cup against Detroit. So redemption. He got his revenge last season. Who's that? I don't know her, but this playoffs and finals and this cup, this is ours, baby. So this was his first cup as well as Sidney Crosby's first cup. But slay and love, it's always a big deal to win your first cup, and it probably made it even better knowing that they won it against the team that they lost against on the last finals. So probably felt really, really good. And the next couple of seasons would be very good in the sense of Marc-André was slaying his goaltending and the team was making playoffs, but they wouldn't see another cup win until 2016. We will also come back to this one in a bit. Please keep the no trade and no movement clause, and also the 2016 Stanley Cup Finals and eventual win in the back of your head. I will bring them up. I'm not making you keep this information for nothing. And the 2010s also saw him, setting his own save records and had some of his best stats during these years and during these seasons. And he was, at this time, really the only, quote unquote, good goalie that Pittsburgh had. Not to say that their backups were trash or anything, but like I said, he was just setting his own records and breaking them, and was just showing his really, really good stats for his goaltending. But this would have him be playing a lot in these games, and he would continuously be the team's starting goalie, which leads us to 2014, where his contract was extended for another 4 years. But then sadly, during the 2015-2016 season, about a little over halfway through it, he ended up getting a very, very bad concussion, which took him out essentially for the rest of the season. And this also included the 2016 playoffs. See, I told you it would come back. You didn't hold that information for nothing, where he was benched from playing. So he did not get to play in the 2016 playoffs. And this also included, obviously, the 2016 Stanley Cup Finals, where they would win against the San Jose Sharks. Yeah. He's on the team, so obviously this counts as a cup win for Marc-André. But I feel that any player, regardless of if their team wins or not, it means more to be actually playing during these games and contributing than just sitting on the bench and watching other people do it. I don't know if that's exactly how I felt, but I know that that's how I would feel if I was a player on an NHL team and my team won the Stanley Cup, but I was benched, I'd be like, yeah, like this technically counts as a win for me. And I get another cup added to my roster, but like, did I really do anything to contribute? Especially being taken out halfway through the season. I don't know. But I mean, now he's got 2 cups under his belt, so I mean, that's good. That's more than a lot of players can say. But he couldn't dwell on this for too long, because now we have the 2016 to 2017 season where he was back and playing, recovered from his concussion and all that good stuff, and the team went to the 2017 Stanley Cup Finals where Marc-André got to play in the games, and they made it to the finals, and they won a 2017 Stanley Cup. So now they're back-to-back winners. Marc-André's got 3 cups under his belt, and life is good. Life is great. Until and now it's 2017, and if you know, you know, this was the year of the 2017 NHL expansion draft, because we've got a new girl coming to school. We've got a hot new bombshell joining the villa, and that is obviously the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And I want to say this. During the time when Marc-André was out for his concussion, he was replaced by the team's backup goalie, this guy named Matt Murray. And he would be the one to replace Marc-André for the 2015-2016 season when Marc-André was out for his concussion, and would also be the goalie to help them win the 2016 Stanley Cup. So at this point, I feel that Marc-André might have just been a little bit fed up with being continuously compared to and replaced with Matt Murray, which is nothing against Murray, but like, obviously your team's like main best goalie, and then you go from being that to being like kind of not second best, but just like you feel like your team thinks that you're second best, and you feel like your team's coaching and management think that you're kind of second best. So at this point, I feel that he might have just been a little bit fed up with the media comparing him to Matt Murray and all this stuff around this time. So it was at this point that Marc-André would waive his no trade and no movement clauses in that contract that he signed back in, 2009? 2008, actually. Remember that other piece of information I had you keep in the back of your head? He decided to waive that, which essentially made him open to snatch up. And that he was, because during the 2017 NHL expansion draft, Marc-André was scooped up by Vegas. So he said, bye-bye Pittsburgh, send me to Sin City. So now he is a Las Vegas Golden Knights player. But this was not a very good start. I mean, he slayed his first game with Vegas, but then not too long after that, he was put on long-term injury reserve after he got kneed in the head by a player during one of the games, and that just does not sound like it felt very good. And he was really only out until December of that year, which was great. It wasn't like the whole issue of his concussion that happened a couple seasons before, where it took him off like pretty much the entire rest of the season. He was only out for maybe 2-3 months. And this was good timing because he helped Vegas advance to the team's first run of playoff games in the 2018 Stanley Cup playoffs. And it actually was a shutout by Marc-André that got Vegas to advance to the 2018 Stanley Cup finals against the Washington Capitals, where of course they would lose to the Washington Capitals, and this got Ovechkin his very first Stanley Cup win. So, great for Ovechkin, not so great for Vegas, but for being a team in their very first season and to make it to the finals was an accomplishment. Even though I don't like Vegas, especially not now, I can acknowledge an accomplishment when I see one. But the thing is that, because this was such a new team, they didn't really have too many like backup options at this point. And like, yeah, they had backup goalies, but because they were such a new team, they were trying to figure out like who would be good enough to be a backup goalie, and they were kind of, like comparing, contrasting other ones. So this led Marc-André to being played a lot. Some would say that he was overplayed, but he was finally given a break during the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs when they finally caught their backup goalies that they deemed worthy enough, and he didn't play during the playoffs. Marc-André didn't, so he finally got a fucking break. He's like, thank fucking God, my guy. I am exhausted. But then history has a very funny habit of repeating itself. When the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs started, when during a game against his favorite team growing up, the Montreal Canadiens, during these playoffs, he had another mishap with a puck. And this time, he didn't knock it into his own net, which was great, but he had misplaced a puck behind his net, and that led a Montreal Canadian player to scoop it up and then make their goal, which after that he was replaced for the rest of their playoff run by the team's backup goalie, Robin Lehner. Lehner is where you spell the last name. So he didn't play the rest of the playoffs, but they didn't make it to the final, so I mean, that's fine. But they didn't leave empty-handed, because it was during this playoff run where Marc-André won his very first Vezina trophy. I hope I'm saying that right too, which is pretty much like the goalie MVP of the season and the finals and stuff. So slay, love that. But this would be his very last season with Vegas, as in the 2021 off season he was traded to the Chicago Blackhawks. And honestly, what's kind of fucked, and also is this another thing to put on my shit list with Vegas, is that, how Marc-André and his agent found out that he was being traded to Chicago? It wasn't from Vegas. Vegas did not tell them personally before the news broke. They learned about it from Twitter. So keep that in your mind. Not because I'm going to bring it up, but just keep it in your mind as a ammunition to use against why you don't like Vegas. Unless you're a Vegas Knights fan, then I don't know what to tell you. So Fleury was obviously pissed, which he should be. Oh my gosh. And he even contemplated just straight up retiring and being like, fuck this, I'm out. This is like honestly really fucking disrespectful. But he and Chicago talked, and they by that I mean the team's GM at that time, they talked, and he ended up convincing Marc-André not to retire, but put it in his contract with Chicago that there would be a no movement clause, and he would not be traded without his consent. And so then Marc-André was like, okay, fine. I guess I'll go on and play in Chicago. But he didn't play in the 2021-2022 season for too long, though, with Chicago, because, it was, the team was going through their first little round of rebuilding and rebranding and everything like that. So the season was kind of meh. It ended up being meh at the end. But he, in March of 2022, so about 75% through the season, he ended up going to Chicago and asking to be traded. At this time, they had a new GM. So the GM that he had talked to when he signed to Chicago initially isn't the same one that they had when he asked to be traded. But this new GM was a real one and was like, hey, I'm still going to hold up. You want to be traded? That's fine. I know that you had this agreement with the other guy where you would not be traded without your consent. You give me your consent, we will put you up and say hey, who wants him? And then it was at this time when he was traded to the Minnesota Wild. which he would play with for the remainder of that 2021 to 2022 season. And he would play in the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs with Minnesota, but they lost. They didn't win that year. And he would stay with Minnesota until officially announcing that he was going to be retiring and that the 2024 to 2025 NHL season would be his very last NHL season. So his last regular season game was April 15th, 2025, and his last NHL game total was on April 29th of 2025. Or was it? Or was it? Because then, in an act I can only see as wanting to go out with a bang, Marc-André then came back. And by this, I mean that on September 12th of 2025, so literally last month, Pittsburgh announced that they would be signing on Marc-André onto a professional tryout contract for the 2025 to the 2026 NHL preseason. And obviously Marc-André was not going to play for the entire preseason. His intention going in and the intended plan from the start was that he would play in only one game in the preseason for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that was on September 27th, 2025. And they made a whole big thing of him returning as a Pittsburgh Penguin for the very last time. This was the team that he was drafted to. He spent majority of his NHL career with this team, and I feel that even though he left the team on not so great terms, it's the team that he called home. It's the team that got him his first and his only cups, and he wanted to retire as Pittsburgh Penguin, which this allowed him to retire officially as a Pittsburgh Penguin. So now he's officially retired. Now he is officially retired unless he comes fucking back again. I don't know. But now he's just living his best life. He got married in 2012 to his longtime girlfriend. Oh, it's a French name. I'm really sorry. Veronique Larosse. She's gorgeous. She's stunning. And they have 2 daughters and 1 son together. So now he's just, focusing on his family and raising his children with his wife, and is just living a very cutesy, lovey little life, now that he is officially retired. And yeah, that is the life and times of Mr. Marc-André Fleury, the first goalie in my player profile series on this show, and I couldn't have asked for a better first goaltender, goalie, whatever you want to call him, to profile, because boy, was it so interesting reading about his career. And like I said, the man just seems like such a kind and gentle soul, and I would have loved to see him play. But I didn't see him play last season with the Minnesota Wild because I didn't go see any Sharks games against Minnesota Wild. So it would have been great to have seen him play IRL, but I did watch his last game with Minnesota Wild last season, and then I did watch his preseason game with Pittsburgh right before he just was like, okay, now I'm officially out. Bye. So those are very interesting to watch, and it was just like, I kind of teared up a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, so that is all for today's episode. I thank you guys so much for bearing with me when I upload these episodes not on Tuesdays. I'm kind of toying with the idea of maybe changing the day that I upload, because it is just a lot for me to do these things. I do the research myself, I do the editing myself, and I do pretty much everything by myself, as well as having a full-time job. The show is just something that I do for fun, but I thank you guys so much for putting up with me postponing things or pushing back dates and everything like that. If you saw my post on my story, I have been kind of going through it the past couple of days / the last like 2 weeks mentally. So I just want to say thank you so much for bearing with me. If I do decide to change the upload dates for episodes, I will obviously let you guys know on the Instagram page for the show, which is at Hot Girls Learn Hockey. And I also will mention it on the next episode, or whatever episode if I decide to change it, which I'm toying with it right now, so it might be announced in the next episode, it might not. But yeah, next week's gonna be just another hockey and chill, because I need to just calm down and just talk and have fun. Not that these aren't fun, but like just something that requires less research. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It does help out a lot. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please make sure to give the show a good rating. If you'd like to, you can always follow the Instagram page like I mentioned before. It is at Hot Girls Learn Hockey, or you can follow me on TikTok, which is at HGLH Pod. Both those places I post highlight reels, anything like that, like get to know me's. And the Instagram page is especially where I post like if the episodes are going to be postponed, or if I do like the polls for whatever topics you guys want to see. And yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.